And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, joined by my co-host, Rick Unger. Let's reintroduce everybody once again. And to his right, she is America's pundit and affiliate attorney. Heather Hansen is back,
I'm back
after a long rest.
Happy to be back, yes.
Well, some of us are happy you're back. And finally,
I'm happy. I don't care if you're happy.
all right, very good. He is the editor of thewisdomdaily.com, and you're not. That is Brad Hirschfield. Mr. Hirschfield.
Good to be here as always.
You're looking well. All right, everybody, let's get right to the Daily Download. And speaking of GOP candidates, Donald Trump had quite a weekend. He delivered two very powerful speeches, one in Vegas at the Freedom Fest and the other in Phoenix in front of 15,000 people. The focus of both speeches? Immigration reform, of course.
I respect Mexico greatly as a country. But the problem we have is that their leaders are much smarter, sharper, and more cunning than our leaders, and they're killing us at the border. And they're killing us in trade. They're killing us. My wife is a legal immigrant. I mean, she went through a whole long process. It's not easy. And we should maybe make it easier and faster, which I think is fine.
This was a Donald Trump speech, so of course it wasn't without controversy, as a group of pro-illegal immigrant protesters made their way into the Phoenix event.
I wonder if the Mexican government sent them over here. I think so.
And get this, Trump on Friday had a meeting with the Friends of Abe. That's a secretive group of Hollywood conservatives, and according to LA Weekly, Trump told the group that the United States made a mistake invading Iraq and taking away a needed buffer with Iran, saying we should have invaded Mexico instead. Apparently the crowd erupted in cheers. Heather, a lot of mainstream Republicans are downplaying Mr. Trump. Lindsey Graham says he's bad for the party, except for Ted Cruz. No, everybody's basically criticizing him, even though kind of taking a safe distance at the same time. Is this a real threat to challenge the Walkers and the Bushes of the world for the nomination?
Listen, right now he is definitely a real threat. Right now he's getting a lot of positive feedback, and he's bringing a lot of issues to the fore that otherwise we wouldn't be talking about. Mm-hmm. You know, the issues about immigration. He is saying, you know, when you watch him speak, everyone in the background is nodding their heads, and they're not doing it, it's not practiced. It is doing it because it's in response to what he's saying. People agree with what he's saying, and they like his fearlessness. I think that in many ways he's good for the party because he's bringing out the issues and making the other people comment on them. So rather than waiting until a little bit later in the process, they're coming forward and speaking to the things that the American public wants spoken to.
Brett.
Look, we've used the word before. We're going to use it again right now. Authenticity. And I get it. I've said it's an authentic circus act, and people would prefer an authentic circus act to real politics. But let's be clear, it is authentic. I think that's where he's going to get challenged by Scott Walker, who also speaks with a kind of authenticity. It's from the heart, and people are desperate for something that feels like it comes from the heart, especially if some of the questions he's raising are real, and they are. So the people who want a more sane policy in immigration are going to have to address the fact that illegal immigration, and actually say those words, not undocumented aliens, actually tap into the energy that people are asking. I think that's why they're applauding and nodding their heads. They want to know, do borders matter anymore? Do boundaries matter anymore? And he has tapped into that legitimate feeling. I don't love the way he addresses it, but he is wise to appreciate that's real for literally tens, if not hundreds of millions of Americans.
I'm going to tap into an analogy I'm probably going to regret saying, but this hit me on the way over here. You know, something you're on the train, you're thinking about these things. That Donald Trump is a lot like Taylor Swift. Stay with me. All right.
I'm with you already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift sells records amounts of albums, yet no one will admit they're a Taylor Swift fan.
Exactly.
And with Donald Trump, it seems to be the same thing. I had a party at my house this weekend, about 50 people. No one would really admit out loud that they like Trump, but they like what he's saying. It's almost like, I like him, I'm just not going to really advertise it.
Well, you know, it's amazing. Go figure that a reality TV star travels down to Arizona, the home of anti-immigration, has an opening act in Joe Arpaio and gets a big crowd. Who would have ever believed it?
15,000 is impressive, though.
Well, yeah, Joe Arpaio pulls that on his own.
Right.
So you know, forgive me if I'm not that interested. By the way, I actually spoke to my friends who were secret members of the Friends of Abe, and it was not an eruption of applause. It was an eruption of laughter. Not nasty laughter, but laughter. So I think we have to be careful. They thought it was funny.
Okay.
Look, I mean, this is what it is. I think it's getting a little bit out of control where we now have a Twitter war going on between somebody who professes to be a serious presidential candidate and a drug lord who escaped from jail. Guys, you know, it's all fun and games, but it's getting a little stupid and embarrassing. I would also add that it's time that somebody say this. We do $220 billion of exports to Mexico every year. There are a lot of people in this country whose livelihoods not only depend on not giving jobs to illegals, but depend on the products that they make that we sell to Mexico. Is Donald Trump thinking about them, Mr. Big Businessman?
Rick,
Quickly.
you know I largely agree with you on this issue, but we're not going to get any traction with people who feel bereft. People don't make this decision because of $250 billion in trade, though it's true. People don't make this decision even though if all those illegal aliens, and that's exactly what they are and what I call them, didn't show up for work, the country wouldn't function.
So all you're saying...
But what I'm saying is we're going to have to appreciate the reality. We can mock Arizona all we want, but the truth is Arizonans, Californians, and Texans pay a grossly disproportionate price for illegal immigration. And until we're sensitive to that, it's not going to get better.
All you just said is that forget the foreign policy. It doesn't matter because the hype that Mr. Trump is selling is what's important.
Well, the Donald didn't just talk about immigration, he also jumped into military and foreign policy as well. Okay, lost audio there for a moment. So with Trump, basically foreign policy, he's looking to, among other things, blow up oil wells in Iraq to fight ISIS. Pretty, I don't want to call it extreme stuff, because we've done that before. Oil wells have been lit on fire. Again, it's straight talk that you just don't get from other candidates.
Right. We did it in Kuwait, and it was policy. It turns out it was bad policy, but it's not unprecedented. The one thing he has said, and I think he's largely correct, I don't know how he built policy of it, when he says there is no such thing as Iraq. At the very least, it helps us to appreciate Iraq was created 100+ years ago as an artificial construct, and the idea that it's going to ever look like a country that any of us would want to live in is probably a deeply misguided premise, whatever party you work for. So I do appreciate he's willing to say that. His idea that you can bomb your way back to normalcy and safety, I think, is crazy. But the boldness to say there is no Iraq, I think he's right.
Donald Trump and Joe Biden have something in common, apparently.
But didn't he also suggest that he, as president, would be friendlier with China and Russia?
He said he'd take on China in terms of, he's been over the map on that a little bit.
That's what he said.
He said we would get pushed around.
He get a better deal.
Right.
Because I think it's fascinating that he tells a group that he wants to invade Mexico but get along with China and Russia. Now, there's a good foreign policy idea.
Well, I mean, clearly he is more focused on business and less focused on true foreign policy. And I think, well, and I do think that he's going to have an uphill climb. I mean, you worry about Scott Walker and his foreign policy credentials. That's certainly something that concerns me when I look at him. And I don't think Donald Trump has a fraction of what even Scott Walker has. So he definitely has an uphill climb there. And I think that when he speaks to the issues that are most important to him, that happen to be the issues that are most important to the American public, the rest sort of fades away.
Rick?
That's saying something. That he doesn't have the credentials of Scott Walker. I think you're right. Yeah. But you know, I don't know what to say. You know, we're all so caught up at this point at talking, and now we're going to have to add Walker to the conversation. There are some serious candidates in the Republican Party. They may not be people that I would be very supportive of, but I respect them as serious candidates. And all these other people are doing is taking away from a legitimate discussion and not allowing the American public to be educated on these people.
But do you think that that's true, Rick? Because I think that in some ways that he's adding to the discussion. But I think he's adding to the discussion. He's having people like Carly Fiorina is now commenting on what the immigration picture looks like to her. Jeb Bush is commenting on sanctuary cities. But they weren't. Not
no,
in the same way.
he's bought immigration as the #1 issue all of a sudden right now because the media is giving him as much time as they are.
Marco Rubio?
Yeah, but
Anybody
he's
remember
not
that
resonating
name?
the way Trump is in terms of media
Yeah,
attention.
because he's
That's all.
he's
Anyway, we
not
got to go.
rude.
Would you vote for Donald Trump? Go to newsmaxpolls.com to cast your vote. Back with more in a moment.